you love movies and movie discussions, you've come to the right place. Who am I, you ask? I am the Wiz. I'm here today with...
Zero.
How you doing this week?
A little relieved. My project is finally out the door, so
Nice.
as long as it makes it through certification, we'll be good to go.
Good. That's good to hear. All right, Zero, so we are here to review the latest movie from Hayao Miyazaki, which is The Boy and the Heron. I watched this last year in the theaters. I went to the theaters on my birthday specifically to watch this. The feeling I came across from it was, I can tell this is a good movie. I'm just not sure if I like it or not. My feelings have changed from my second viewing, but I want to hear what your thoughts are first.
If you look at it from one angle, and that's on the surface layer, it's yet another fantastical Miyazaki film. So just lots of beautiful imagery, lots of very, very silky smooth animations, very, very well-designed characters. Much like a lot of Miyazaki's movies, there is also an undertone on it. For those who have seen a lot of Miyazaki's works, they are very anti-war. There's a little bit of reference to that in this movie. For me, this kind of felt fantastical in a literary sense. It almost feels like something that has the same feelings as Alice in Wonderland, just with kind of a fantastical world that's not quite what the real world is. For me, I just kind of thought the whole second world really was just an absolute spectacular wonder, to say the least.
Yeah, that is interesting that you say Alice in Wonderland, because I really wasn't thinking that, but I can definitely see where you're coming from with it. It's interesting, when Mojito goes into that world, I call it the dream world in this movie, the tone of the film drastically changes. Like in the first, I would say 45 minutes, it's a very quiet, very slow, a very thoughtful type of film about a kid who is going through the stages of grief. But then when he goes into that dream world, it's a pretty hard shift into tone. But what's interesting is that that dream world is a very interesting representation of what he is going through in his head and how he's trying to get past the grief and to be able to move on and love and care again, where he's having this hard time with the stepmom figure that he is not able to really make that connection because he still has that grief revolving around his mom. The tone was one of the things that really threw me off a little bit, but seeing it a second time really made me realize what it was trying to do. I found myself being much more receptive to it. Even like Spirited Away, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. They would not only have those quiet moments, but they would be sandwiched in between these like big spectacle moments of music and color. But this movie, The Boy and the Heron, doesn't do that. They really section everything off. To the first half's the quiet part, the second half is the loud part.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting way to put it. It kind of starts a little bit slow in the beginning, but then just after a significant event happens in Mahito's daily life, that's where things start to get into the fantastical, especially with the heron, which the title references to, starts kind of just goading Mahito, going, hey, your mother's alive. She's not dead. She's very much alive.
Yeah.
And that's where things start to get weird, because that's what you see. Just the hospitals that she was at goes up in flames, and Mahito's being traumatized in his nightmares of just reliving that day over and over again.
When you go into the dream world, you realize what is being done here. Now, there's a lot of themes and meanings to these characters and what's going on in the film that the first time I watched it, I didn't entirely get. I kind of got what it was going for when I saw it in the theaters, but then at the end of it, I was like, I have so many questions. It was more or less like, I know where they were getting at. I just don't know exactly if they got there for me in this one. But after a second viewing, I definitely got it. Even though there are still a few questions I have as to what characters represent what and why they were there in the first place. So it is an amazingly deep and well thought out movie. And the one thing that's the most well thought out is the world that the dream world inhabits. Because not only is it a representation of what Mojito goes through in his head, but there are also like really fantastical elements and things in there that are in itself incredibly interesting to watch. Not just visually how they are represented, but just how the story kind of weaves it back and forth into these interesting elements.
What made sort of the dream world a little bit interesting to me is, in my mind, I sort of drew parallels to the one myth about, I want to say it was Persephone, where one of the Greek gods goes down into Hades to try to rescue her. And Hades kind of gives the god a challenge, saying, hey, if you can walk out of the underworld without turning your head and looking back, then you can walk away with your wife just getting out of the underworld. But the minute you turn your head around, I get to keep her forever. It just felt like a sort of a journey into sort of like an underworld, especially with a lot of the focus in this fantasy world revolving around death. There's just a lot of death and despair. So I just kind of went into thinking about Greek mythology as well.
Do we need to really say about how beautiful the animation is in this? This is kind of a standard thing with Miyazaki and with Ghibli films, but the animation is just fucking gorgeous in this movie. But it's gorgeous in a different way from like others that we've seen, like Spirited Away, Howl's Moving Castle, Princess Mononoke, where those are visual spectacles by the color and bombast and the craziness that you see. But this is beautiful in a very quiet and understated way. There aren't scenes in this film where you're going, oh my god, the fucking color. Holy shit. Like I would in like Spirited Away. But there is a very understated beauty in this movie that I really found enchanting, but in a very different way.
As usual, Studio Ghibli's animation is just, dare I say, immaculate. It's an absolute feast for the eyes. As with the whole mentioning of just the various literary themes that are just peppered in this movie, the use of color just kind of goes into those themes. Where there's death and despair, there's a lot of very, very profound dark colors that just kind of bring that feeling of brooding despair. And then for moments that kind of represent kind of a break from the death and destruction, it's a lot of vibrant colors, just a lot of just colors that just sort of explode and just bring life into the universe. Music and sound is yet again another hallmark of a great Miyazaki film. You've got musical themes that kind of underscore big significant events, especially the one towards the end where it's just destruction everywhere. Just it feels so chaotic, but it kind of narrates that point in a musical way in such a beautiful and destructive way. Also, I totally screwed up the mythology. It was Orpheus and his wife Eurydice is the Greek myth that I was thinking of.
Oh, okay. Because I was, when you mentioned Persephone, I was like, wait a minute, that doesn't seem right. Like, not that I'm like a Greek scholar.
I completely messed that one up. I was like, god damn it.
Yeah.
But that's what I get for being on a couple hours of sleep.
Oh, God, that's terrible, man. All right, Zero, do you recommend The Boy and the Heron?
It's kind of a multifaceted movie. Kids might enjoy it just purely on the surface level from the fantastical elements, but adults may get more enjoyment out of it because they'll be able to see sort of the multifaceted nature of it. It's got undertones on Miyazaki's background. It's got some allegories relating to death and going into sort of an underworld of sorts. It's just got so much just layered on top of each other. And that's on top of the fact that you've got a fantastic soundtrack to it. The animation's just immaculate. So, yeah, there's just a lot to love here. And once again, it's just another home run from Miyazaki, which does not surprise me in the slightest.
But I highly recommend this. I think this is a really good movie. I think it's a top 3. I still think Spirited Away is my favorite of his. This might be 3 with me. This would be, I guess it would be Spirited Away, Totoro, and this one. Fantastic movie. I think it's beautiful in a number of ways, just not even just visually and by the music, but by the story that it's telling. I still have a few things I'm confused about. Not gonna lie. There's gonna be some things where I'm like, what does this character represent? But I still found this movie incredibly enjoyable and very heartfelt and deep. I will say I don't think this is for kids. I think you said that the kids might be able to enjoy the visuals. I think this is too slow for kids. I think a lot of kids will be bored by it, even though it looks really pretty. I think this is really meant for the adults who like Miyazaki's work and Ghibli's work. So I think those are the type of people that will really enjoy this movie. And I think this is what this is really meant for. But yeah, overall, I highly recommend this. So what is your top 3 Ghibli film, or top 3 Miyazaki, I should say?
Miyazaki films? Oof. Yeah, that's going to be hard for me because that would be like telling a parent, who's the favorite out of all of your kids?
Oh. But see, the thing with the whole thing about what's your favorite kid, like parents say that, but you know they have one. So what's your favorite?
I think Mononoke is on top, but I think
Okay.
Mononoke's themes of humanity versus nature are just one of the big literary themes that I'm a real big fan of. Probably second to that, Kiki's Delivery Service, because that's just a fun movie. Third, probably Spirited Away. Not quite a Miyazaki film, but related because it is a Studio Ghibli production. Grave of the Fireflies,
Oh.
that one is an absolutely beautiful movie, but my god, it is a sobering one.
Oh, it's devastating to watch. Oh my god.
Yeah, I still remembered when I was in a literary appreciation class that was focused on anime because the professor had taken a trip to Japan and just kind of really got into just, I guess, anime and literary themes.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the week that she was like, all right, so this next coming week, we're watching Grave of the Fireflies. Bring a big fat box of tissues. This one is gonna break a lot of you.
Mm.
And I still remember in that class there were a bunch of like guys on the college football team. They're just who cries at a movie, an animated movie at that. That sounds like pussy shit. And of course, just Grave of the Fireflies ends up playing through, and you get to some of the more sobering parts. Some of these guys were just wailing like their dog had died. I was just like, that must feel terrible to put all that machismo out last week only to be cut down low by this movie. Holy shit.
That's good. That's good. Some people just deserve it that way. But yeah, that's a devastating movie. Overall, I highly recommend it. And you recommend it?
Oh, yeah.
All right, so we both highly recommend The Boy and the Heron. It's on Max right now, right? Is it on Netflix as well? I'm not sure. But it's on Max.
I have no idea on Netflix, but that's because I don't have Netflix.
Yeah. Good on, it's actually good for you, man. So, both highly recommend The Boy and the Heron. Check it out on Max. Now, if you want my full review on this movie, you can go to my website at IamTheWiz.com. You'll have my full written review right on the site, along with a link to the video that has this review that you've just listened to. All right, Zero, so that's the end of the review. On Saturday, I'll be reviewing Star Trek Nemesis. On Tuesday, I'll be reviewing Huxon, Witchcraft Through the Ages. And on Thursday, Zero, what are we watching?
We were watching the 1996 American teen supernatural horror film, The Craft.
That's right, The Craft. See, I remember this film when I was in high school, mainly because it's really what all the girls who were goth or who were into that type of subculture would talk about nonstop. It's like, oh, I've got to watch The Craft tonight. And I think that's part of the reason why I just never watched it, because one, it sounded lame, and two, goth girls scared me. I've grown past it. I will say I do like myself a goth female type person. They're not as scary as they once were, but okay, maybe I'm a little scared. Zero, what is your familiarity with The Craft?
It just sort of became a bit of a classic, and I remember you had the typical trope just kind of skyrocket when this movie had came out of just troubled teen girls going, witchcraft sounds cool, and just the spirituality shops just went fucking off the rails, just selling stuff. Because I remember when it had came out when I was in middle school, I just remember just a bunch of the girls in middle school after the movie came out had gone to like the New Age shop, bought tarot cards and like spell casting candles and stuff.
On Saturday, I'll be reviewing Star Trek Nemesis. Tuesday, I'll be reviewing Huxon, Witchcraft Through the Ages. And on Thursday, me and Zero are reviewing The Craft. I am The Wiz.
And I'm Zero.
Talk to you guys next time. Bye.